deck profile. We are still in another place. The video might look a little weird, but that is okay. Oop, that's looking weird. Alright, so this has been one I've been promising for a while. The Edison format deck profile. The Edison format. Excellent, that's working today. So heroes have been a huge thing for a long time. Starting, of course, with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. You know, Elemental Heroes is what Jaden Yuki used, and he also used Evil Heroes as well. In the GX manga, he used Masked Heroes. In the GX manga, we also were introduced to Vision Heroes, and of course, Astro Phoenix used Destiny Heroes. There's been so many heroes. It's received a lot of support over the years and remains one of the most beloved archetypes. So I say, let's get into it. We got some cool stuff to show off to you guys, and I can't wait to get to it. So let's start out with the main deck. There is no side deck for this because I'm using a universal side deck for the most part. And I forgot to bring it with me today, but I'll do a video on my universal side deck as well. So we're going to start out with the main deck. First off, we have Neospatian Grand Mole. Now, this guy came out, this was Jaden Yuki's second deck in the anime, the Neospatian cards, which all fused together with, you know, Elemental Hero Neos to make contact fusions, which I believe those were our first contact fusions. Fusions that go off from the field and not using polymerization. So Grand Mole is actually a staple in Edison anyway, because at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can bounce both of them back to the hand. Really good. He is our one rock-type monster. He's there for a card we're going to discuss later. Next, we have Elemental Hero Clayman. We have a couple copies of him. He is a level 4, 800 attack, 200 defense. He's not really going to be used a lot in battle, but we are going to see him in our fusions. Of course, we got two copies of Elemental Hero Avion, 1000, 1000, level 3 again. So we have a few. We also have our Burstinatrix, and we have our two copies of Sparkman. So these guys, of course, these are the original Elemental Heroes. These are our normal type monsters. Like I said, they're not really being used in battle, but they are there as fusion material. And we'll get into what fusions we're using with them later. So next, we have a couple copies of Elemental Hero Bubbleman. So he's used for a few fusions. Also, if he's the only card in your hand, you can special summon him. And if this is the only card that you control and have in your hand when you summon him, you can draw 2 cards. We have a copy of Elemental Hero Voltic. So if this is one that came out in the manga. If this inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon one of your banished hero monsters. Now, this is a guy that might be coming out of the deck. The deck is not as perfect as I'd like it to be, but it's what I have right now. And at the end of the video, I'll discuss what I'd like to do with it. But he's one of the ones that might be coming out. Next, we have a couple copies of Elemental Hero Wildheart. Now, this guy is unaffected by trap cards, so he's great as an endgame beater to get that last bit of damage that you need without being afraid of trap cards. And, of course, he's used in some fusions. Next, we have one of the most important cards of the deck. We have a couple copies of Elemental Hero Prisma. Now, this guy is important. So you can reveal a fusion monster from your deck and then send one of the fusion materials whose name is specifically listed on the card to the graveyard, and then this thing becomes that monster till the end phase. Now, this is an important card in many fusion decks in the Edison format. But you do have to make sure that you understand cards that are generic, like let's say Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, that just says 1 hero monster, 1 water type monster, that you can't use Prisma for. You have to use one that specifically mentions a name, like revealing Chimera Tech and sending a Cyber Dragon from deck to the graveyard. That you can do, but you cannot just reveal a generic one. So we got 2 copies of him. Next, the most important hero in our main deck, Elemental Hero Stratos. This guy is another version of E-Call. So you can either, when he's normal special summon, you can either destroy spell or traps in the field up to the number of hero monsters you control except for him, or you can add one hero monster from your deck to your hand. This guy was limited to 1 for Edison, so I only have 1 copy, but he is incredibly important. He will grab you anything you need from the deck, and quite honestly, he's the card you want to summon first turn. Next, we have a copy of Elemental Hero Blade Edge. So it's got piercing damage, and it's a good 26 beater. It does require 2 tributes to summon, but quite honestly, we're not going to summon him. We're using him as fusion material. Then we have 2 copies of Elemental Hero or Evil Hero Malicious Edge. So you can tribute this with 1 summon if your opponent controls a monster, and it's got piercing damage. This is a good beater as well. We're more likely to summon it over the Blade Edge. However, we're using this mostly as fusion material. Moving on to the spells, we use more spells than traps in this deck. Spells have always been incredibly important for heroes, especially with the huge fusion aspect they have. So we have way more spells than we have traps. So our first spell we have is Fusion Recovery. This will let us take a polymerization and a card that was used for fusion in the graveyard, add them back to our hand. Self-explanatory why that's there. We've got our 2 copies of polymerization. This is the original fusion material card. Got one from Structured Deck Joey. Next, we have 2 copies of Miracle Fusion. This will let us banish materials from the field or graveyard to special summon or fusion summon an elemental hero. So incredibly important. We got 2 of those. Unfortunately, Parallel World Fusion was not a thing in this format. That came out like the next year. Really unfortunate. There's some great combos we could do with that. Next, we have a couple copies of Dark Fusion. So this is essentially polymerization for a fiend fusion type monsters. So this is how we're going to summon a good portion of our extra deck, which we're going to get into. So fusion summon 1 fiend fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. Your opponent cannot target it with card effects this turn. So honestly, this is a pretty good fusion card. We got 2, and of course with the speed duel secret, looks great. Next, we have a couple copies of Dark Calling. This is essentially Miracle Fusion for fiend monsters. Well, ones that have to be summoned with Dark Fusion, so fiend monsters. Except you banish it from the hand and or graveyard. This is not used for the field, so that's what you got to remember. Next, we have 3 copies of Emergency Call. Adds 1 elemental hero from your deck to your hand. This is your Rhoda, and you're going to run 3. It's important. This will grab you anything you need in the deck, because if you're using old style heroes, which this is before the generic fusions of the GX manga. At this point from the manga, we only had Gaia, Absolute Zero, and Terra Firma. So Emergency Call is important because you need very specific things. Then, of course, we have a couple of staples, Heavy Storm and Giant Trunade. These are pretty much going to be in any Edison deck you find. Lastly, we have Future Fusion. This card is absolutely amazing. This will fill your graveyard with the heroes you need, because you reveal your fusion monster, and then you send the materials from the deck to the graveyard, and then special summon it 2 turns later. So you're not always hoping to get a fusion off this. You're hoping to use it as a foolish burial, pretty much, for the monsters that you need. So Future Fusion was absolutely broken in the Edison era, and I love it. And I'll tell you what my usual Future Fusion target would be when we get to the extra deck. Next, we have only 5 traps. We got our couple copies of Bottomless Trap Hole. We've got a copy of Hero Signal. So if a monster is destroyed in your side of the field and sent to the graveyard by battle, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower hero monster from your deck that includes hero in its name. 1 copy of that. Then we have 2 copies of Starlight Road for obvious reasons. All right, let's move on to the extra deck. Also, I had to build heroes because I already had these sleeves. Moving on to our extra deck. It's going to have some pretty standard stuff for this type of deck. It does have the 2 Stardust in the back for the Starlight Road. So that's just kind of expected. Starting off, first one we have is Elemental Hero Steam Healer. This is a fusion of Burstinatrix and Bubble Man. So this guy, I love this guy. His attack isn't really that great, but he's great for clearing out some monsters. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you gain life points. So Steam Healer is great to have. Of course, we have Elemental Hero Flame Wingman. Almost no hero deck is complete without him. This is Jaden's first fusion he summoned in the anime. This is one of his most famous monsters, and honestly, one of the monsters you think about when you think old school heroes. Fusing Avian Burstinatrix. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict damage equal to the attack of the destroyed monster in the graveyard. Of course, we have our Shining Flare Wingman. Fusing Flame Wingman and Sparkman. Must be fusion summoned, gains 300 attack for each elemental hero card in your graveyard. If this card destroys opponents in my battle, it inflicts damage equal to the attack. Next, we have one of my favorites, Thunder Giant. Fusing Sparkman and Clayman. You can discard a card from your hand to select it and destroy one face-up monster in the field with the original attack that's less than the attack of this card. You can only use that effect once per turn. So good board clear. This also gets around Duplock. This gets around Spirit Reaper. This gets around Marshmallow. Always good to have one of him in the deck. Another one of my favorites, Plasma Vice. Fusing Sparkman and Blade Edge. So he's got piercing damage, and you can discard a card to destroy one attack position monster your opponent controls. Next, we have Elemental Hero Wild Edge. Fusing Wild Heart and Edgeman. It's supposed to say Blade Edge. That's probably a typo, but it's Blade Edge and Wild Heart. So that is definitely a typo. So this monster is going to attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. So this one's great for getting, let's say if they play Scapegoat or they got the tokens on the field, blow them away with Wild Edge. Next, we have our future fusion target, Elemental Hero Electrum. Fuses Avian, Burstinatrix, Clayman, and Bubbleman. So this guy is Wind, Water, Fire, and Earth, along with Light. When this is fusion summoned, you shuffle all banished cards in the deck. This card gains 300 attack points for each monster your opponent controls that shares an attribute with this card. So if I can summon him, cool. If I can't, still cool. I could combo him with Miracle Fusion and just put everything back into the deck. But he's mostly there to activate Future Fusion for. Next, we're moving on to the evil heroes in the deck. These are the ones that we are summoning with Dark Fusion and Dark Calling. First, we have Inferno Wing, fusion of Avian and Burstinatrix. So it gets piercing damage and then inflicts damage equal to the attack or defense, whichever is higher of the monster in the graveyard. Next, we have Infernal Sniper, mixing Clayman and Burstinatrix, the evil version of Rampart Blaster, essentially. This is the evil version of Flame Wingman. So, cannot be destroyed by spell effects. Once per turn during standby phase, burn your opponent for 1,000. Must be in defense mode for that to happen. Next, we have Lightning Golem, the evil version of... what the hell is he? I'm tired. Thunder Giant. So once per turn, you can target a monster in the field and destroy it. Pretty good. Use them for board clearing. Use it to get around the Rykos. Next, we have another one of my favorites, Wild Cyclone, fusing Wild Heart and Avian. So this guy Ancient Gears people when he attacks. And if he inflicts battle damage, destroys all set spell and traps your opponent controls. So pretty amazing. Next, we have the reason why we're using Grand Mole, Dark Gaia. So one Fiend monster, one Rock monster. The original attack of this becomes the combined original attack of the materials used. So we're probably going to do Malicious Edge with this and Grand Mole. So that pops him up to 35 right there. When this card declares an attack, you can change all defense position monsters your opponent controls to attack position. Flip effects are not activated this time. This gets around Rykos. Always got to get around the Rykos. Lastly, we have Evil Hero Malicious Edge. Malicious Fiend, fusing Malicious Edge with a level 6 or higher fusion fiend monster. So that would be any one of our other fusions or another malicious edge. During the opponent's battle phase, all monsters they control are changed to face-up attack position and must attack this card if able. So good for getting around a bunch of stuff. And of course, we have our Stardusts. Hey, you're good. He's good. Acorn's good. So this deck is not as complete as I'd like it to be. There's a few things that I'd want to get. I'm liking the main deck for the most part, although I do kind of want to add one Ocean if I get the chance. And I know exactly what I want to do for the extra deck. I want to add 2 Absolute Zero and 1 Gaia. There's a few things I'd probably take out for that. But overall, I think the deck is pretty good. I have not really had the chance to test it out a lot because I only just got in like the rest of the cards for it. But all in all, I think it's a good deck. Heroes have always been strong, and they've always had a lot of answers to things, and they've always been just an aesthetically pleasing deck. So I'm excited to use it. Again, even though Quick Draw Danny Warrior is my passion for Edison, I'm excited to see what this deck can do. I'm excited to see what I can do with it. Because Heroes have always been another passion of mine. Elemental Heroes was like the first deck I really got excited about in Yu-Gi-Oh! I got it for my birthday one year, and I'm like, I have to. I had lost it for a bit, but then I built it again before I moved to North Carolina, and I said, this is going to be my debut deck in North Carolina. And it was. All in all, I love the deck. It's going to be a lot of fun to play. I don't know if it's going to be like taking tournaments for me, but at the very least, it's going to be fun to play. This is mostly a fun deck. The Quick Draw is my deck that's the heavy hitter. Now, once I get 2 copies of Absolute Zero, the deck will be a lot stronger. I'd probably end up taking out probably the Electrum for it. Might take out the Steam Healer, although I do like him. I could even do without the Gaia. It's mostly the 2 copies of Absolute Zero that I need. I would probably take out the Voltic for a copy of Ocean. But all in all, pretty much I would not change much about the deck. I think it's a lot of fun. It's really just the Absolute Zero that I want and need for this deck. But Absolute Zero is not exactly within my grasp at the moment. We do have funding problems here at Winterspell Streaming. Unfortunately, like I said, our Cash App never really took off. I'd like it to, because that would fund us getting new games, and it would fund us getting new cards to show off for Edison and help me build decks. But hopefully in the future we can get that going a bit better. But for now, we're doing what we can with what we have. I have been trading like crazy to try to get decks built up to give you guys profiles. But, we're able to get you a few good ones right now. All in all, it's going to be a fun deck. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And I'm also going to get that video out of my Universal side deck because it actually is pretty much complete for what I want it to be. So I'll get that out to you guys within the next couple of days, maybe even tonight after D&D. But, we're going to get it out to you. So if you guys, remember, we do have a Discord. The link is in the channel description if you guys want to join and be able to talk with me and talk with other fans. I'm still working on a D&D podcast for us to get together, different podcasts, and getting you guys some more content. Still trying to figure out all the technology stuff for it, and I'm working on the adventure for it. It's going to be kind of JRPG style, some kind of Chosen Heroes isekai thing. We are working on it, trying to get that out there. I'm trying to gather people for it and figure out the best way to put it out. Because again, technology is not my forte. So I'm kind of playing all this by ear and like slowly learning. But we're working on it. We're going to get this stuff out for you. Once I have the new build for Quick Draw Danny Warrior, I'll get that out to you guys for the Plant Turbo build. And we got a lot of cool stuff coming. We're going to keep making it happen. And hopefully you guys did enjoy finally seeing my hero profile since I got everything together. Until next time, this has been your Wintry Neighborhood Winter Spell, reminding you all to stay frosty, and I will see you in the next video.